Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I hope that this video will be a little bit shorter than the last one. I got a little carried away talking about the Christie's Missing Readathon. So, let's jump into it. This one is going to focus a little bit more on the nonfiction that I've been reading. I've been very focused this time around. I've been trying to finish... I've had a couple that I've read at the same time, but for the most part, I've been trying to actually finish the books, reading them one after another. I'm going to first show what I put in my book journal so far to give a better idea. I think I already mentioned last time that I finished Michelangelo and the Pope's ceiling. I had a lot of fun with that. Got into calligraphy, type a little bit. And let's see, there we go. I got a bunch of stamps that were Vatican stamps for that, which was a lot of fun. Just putting those alongside my review. Oh, here's a little bit more of me practicing calligraphy. It's a quote from the inside of that Sherlock Holmes book that I showed you in the last video. And this picture's from The Adventure of the Naval Treaty. Oh, I went a little bit crazy with that eye there. It looks more like a J. I was trying to make it look Holmesian. Okay, so what I wanted to actually come in here to show you is one of the books that I finished. And this is actually a replica of the cover that I sketched. This is Murder by the Book. Try to copy the text as best I could. And this is by Claire Harmon. Here's my library card, finished in October. I had some fun with this. I took my stamp and, had fun with making things look bloody there. I do think I went a little too dark with this page. I wanted to go with the penny illustrated paper and give it kind of that period look where, a lot of times they would make up stories and have like playbills and stuff talking about the trials and hand them out. And that was kind of the look I was going for. But I think that I ended up going a bit dark with the pages. I really enjoyed that book. It actually made me want to go and read Dickens. And I might have mentioned that last time. I have not read much of Oliver since then. I've fallen a bit behind on that. But I was hoping to read Christmas Carol this Advent, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I guess I'll be reading it as part of like the 12 days of Christmas, the traditional 12 days of Christmas. We'll see. If not, I'll read Christmas Carol next year after I've already had a chance to finish Oliver. Then the next book that I finished, and again, this is an exact replica of the cover that I drew, just ignore the fact that I have, bloody handprints around it, just to kind of make it more, exciting. This is The A to Z of Victorian Crime. This was a Kindle book. Now, her arm is actually supposed to be a little closer to the body than I sketched it there, and, there's some things that are a bit off, but it's close enough. This, I should have gotten it from the name of the title, but this was more of like a who's who. It was in alphabetical order and gave a little bit of information about each alphabetized topic. What I found it best for was a jumping off point to maybe get interested in some of their source books or in some of the topics. So I did look up at least one of the source books from this and picked up that book, and I'll show you that to you in a moment. But this is from my printable ephemera for Jack the Ripper, as is this one here. And actually, I think this might actually be from Jack the Ripper as well, or it's just from one of my crime ones. I know this one's just from one of my crime ones. I put my library stamp there. It was, like I said, it was an okay book, mostly good as a reference. And I ended up giving that 3.5 stars. This was just a fill-in page where I was playing with some of my other ephemera the bunnies reading about Sherlock Holmes because I'd read another Sherlock Holmes story. I had just finished reading The Red-Headed League, which is why he has this quote here from The Red-Headed League. The other book that I finished that I put in here was The Gift of Fear. And actually, I'm still in the process of putting together, I had to write up the review for this. This one's going to be one of my more simple ones because I don't have like a huge idea of what I want to do with this. So I've got the Library of Congress page. I've got my library card, finished early November. I'm very much behind in my journaling. Part of it is because I was waiting for ephemera for Michelangelo, which is what put me so far behind. I did enjoy drawing the Scream. I haven't drawn that since I was taking art class as a child. I drew a Bugs Bunny version of it. But this is meant more to be as close as possible replica of the actual Scream. And then I just added this ephemera from a noir ephemera that I had, printable ephemera. And then of course some washi tape at the bottom. So I had to figure out how much I'm going to dress up the review section I make. I'm hoping I can maybe get my review all on one page here so then I can have an extra play page here. So yeah. That's some of the books I finished. I had a lot of fun with that. The other book that I finished, I'll probably talk about it again when I actually get a chance to put it in. Absolutely loved this book. Lindsay Fitzharris's The Butchering Art. She also writes another one called, I want to say it's called The Face Maker. I could be wrong about that. And I need to check that one out. I think I have it on Kindle. She seems to write medical history books, which is right up my alley. If I could give this more than 5 stars, I would. I absolutely love this book. It's one of those books that I love not only because I love the topic matter. I've always been interested in, ever since I learned about Joseph Lister, however it's pronounced. I have always been interested in him and his story of bringing cleanliness to the forefront. One of the forefathers of impressing how important having a germ-free environment was for survival rates. And as it says, Joseph Leicester's quest to transform the grisly world of Victorian medicine. He absolutely fascinating. Not only was he a genius medically and all that, he was just, first of all, he was a genius as a surgeon. He was a genius as a researcher. He was a much-loved teacher. And in spite of all that, he was so humble. He was Quaker in background. He eventually became, I think it was like either Anglican or something like that, when he ended up marrying, because otherwise he would not have been able to marry the woman that he loved. But he was just known to be a nice guy. He was so wonderful to his patients. He made sure to see them and treat them as people, not just diagnoses or numbers, which was not the way that most doctors seemed to look at it back then. They were not very patient focused. Whereas he would never say, oh, that gouty leg, like in room 1, or the heart, I'm using more examples that I might have seen in my own time working in healthcare, but for him it would have been like, oh, that gouty leg, that stab wound. Instead of referring to them by what was going on with them, or as case number whatever, this poor man, this poor woman, he would do whatever he could to make things less distressing for them. And I think I mentioned last time one of my favorite stories of him listening to, the child had their limb fixed and preferred their toy for their surgeon to fix. And so he very seriously fixed the child's toy in front of him. did so that his toy could have the surgery as well, which I thought was absolutely adorable, and just another look into the kind of person that he was. Just one of the few times where I've finished a biography and been like, this is a man that I would love to go back in time to meet. This is a man I would have loved to, if I had been during that era, even though, yes, there were female doctors back then. The Doctors Blackburn? They were sisters. I'm pretty sure the last name was Blackburn. They were women doctors. I want to say that they were Americans who moved to England. Could have been the other way around. But they were female doctors. There were at least 2 of them that became doctors during that era. But it was not very common. And I wouldn't have had much contact with him other than as a nurse, which is what I was. But he would have been someone I would have enjoyed if I had lived during that period, learning under and working under, because he would not have been arrogant or difficult. I think he would have shared his knowledge. Just one of the few times I come back, I'm like, this is not only an interesting man, this is a wonderful man, a good man. So, thoroughly enjoyed that book. It's probably one of my favorite books of the year. Okay, so after that, what else have I read? Oh, I forgot to show some of these other ones. If I have time, I will. I started Mouse. I haven't gone as far in it as I'd like, simply because I wanted to be able to focus on it. I am about to head into chapter 3, Prisoner of War, excuse me, but I haven't got to that point. It's good. It's a comic, but it's definitely memoir style, or it's comic style, but it's definitely memoir. That's what I want to say. I do think it's good. I do think it's going to be telling an important story. I haven't gotten it in far enough to really get the meat and potatoes of it, but it's good so far. Then the other 2 books that I've been focusing on. Well, I don't have here because it's on Kindle, but I am reading a book on the Boy Scouts during World War I. I have some issues with it. It's put out by Pen and Sword Books. I like their books. Sometimes they can be a bit hit and miss for me. Just, I don't know if... Sometimes the books aren't quite as high quality as I'd like them to be. Either something got missed in editing, or in this case, the book feels a little bit disjointed. Like, sometimes it feels when they're popping from story to story, there's not a big enough of a bridge in between. I end up like, okay, wait, who are we talking about? How did we get there? But it is interesting hearing about the individual Boy Scouts. It's very interesting hearing about the great part, honestly, that the Boy Scouts did play in World War I, and how they had their influence on the home front, but also out in the war itself. So I am enjoying that, and I have a bunch of Boy Scout stamps that I believe they're I wasn't able to find 1920s, I don't think. I think they're 1930s, 1940s Boy Scout stamps. So that'll go in my book journal. Other than that, I am reading Disjointed. I started this on a day that I was very frustrated because I was having some persistent fatigue that I just couldn't shake. I basically had slept on and off all day, and I was frustrated. So this is a book about the different things that go along with Ehlers-Danlos, which is one of the conditions that I have. And sometimes, well, the way I've always coped with any of my medical conditions is to think through the why. Why is this happening? How is this happening? What knowledge has always been my coping power, being able to logic my way through it. Does it fix the problem? No, but at least I can kind of take the personal aspect of it. I can look at it clinically as if it was a nursing issue I had to deal with, as if it was my patient instead of me. So I'm able to look at it academically instead, and it's always been the way that I've coped with having medical conditions, even when I was still able to work. So yeah, I am enjoying this. It was nice to see a couple of the things that I theorized beforehand being mentioned by some of the professionals in the book. This was a book compiled by a woman who her daughter wanted to have something together to help her figure out how to manage her Ehlers-Danlos as she was going out into the adult world. This book was released in 2019, so it's a very recent book. Ehlers-Danlos is a rare condition. Not a whole lot is known about it. We're still trying to find genetic markers for some of them, particularly the kind I have, which is hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. So this is one of those newer conditions, one of the rare conditions, because I'm a zebra. And that the quote goes, for medical students, when you hear hoofbeats, it's most likely a horse and not a zebra. I.e., usually when you see the symptoms, it's more likely going to be the most common, not the rare things. So those of us who have the rare medical conditions, we're the zebras. And the animal mascot, for lack of a better term, for people with Ehlers-Danlos is a zebra. So this is actually supposed to represent Ehlers-Danlos, that zebra right there. So, oh yeah, underneath of that's a dysautonomia awareness ribbon. Another one of my conditions. But anyway. So yeah, this has been a very interesting book for me. Not everyone's cup of tea. But I do like my bookmark here. Magnetic bookmark. I forget where I got this from. Read books, drink tea, and avoid social interaction. Which is exactly what I want to do when I'm having a flare. Final one that I want to show that I'm currently reading for this video. This is The Scarlet and the Black. If you have ever watched the movie, it's very good. It's with, I can't remember when, I want to say the movie was put out in the 1960s. And it has, oh, here it is. It was adapted in 1983 into the television. Oh, I didn't realize it was a television film. It's always been a huge favorite of my family's. Okay, so this classic account by G.P. Gallagher, originally published under the title The Scarlet Pimpernel of the Vatican, great title, was adapted in 1983 into the television film The Scarlet and the Black, starring Gregory Peck as Monsignor O'Flaherty, huge Gregory Peck fan, and Christopher Plummer as Ober's German thing I can't pronounce, Kapler. So, for one thing, watch the movie. For another thing, read this book. And if you think the movie's exciting, I'll tell you what. The movie doesn't even fully capture the crazy, I don't know. Truth is crazier than fiction. This man, no fear. Bold as all get out. This priest, I mean, I swear, he had his own legion of angels watching him, because it's best, the way I see him, even in this book, is best typified by a scene in the movie where he, as played by Gregory Peck, he's praying from his prayer book of his breviary or something, and separating the main, what would be Vatican property and then the rest of Rome, is this white line, because the Vatican has diplomatic immunity. It's considered, its own country, and it was officially neutral. So as long as Monsignor O'Flaherty stayed in Vatican property, he could avoid being arrested by Kapler, because Kapler knew he was leading this not resistance per se, but kind of a resistance. Where he was leading this movement. I don't want to give too much detail, but he knew he was leading this movement against the Germans' interests. So he had made it clear that if Monsignor O'Flaherty was caught on the wrong side, on the non-Vatican side of the white line, he would be arrested and bad things were going to happen to him. This scene in the movie just typifies everything that is Monsignor O'Flaherty, both in real life and in the movie. He's reading his breviary as played by Gregory Peck, and he's walking along the line, and while he's ostensibly praying from his prayer book, he's glancing at the German soldiers, the SS or whoever the particular German soldiers were along that line, who were guarding that line, and he would take his foot and swing it along the line and then end up with a step on the Vatican side. And he kept doing that, tempting them, taunting them as he walked along the line, just testing them. And just kind of thumbing his nose at them a little bit. And this is kind of letting them know that they couldn't cow him. He would be most happy if he could have cut them in a boxing match, because apparently he was a boxer at one point. Not like a professional boxer, but if you just want to read about this scrappy Irish priest who decided to take the Germans head on and be like, hey, not on my watch. I'm going to be that burr under your saddle and just make your lives miserable. Scarlet and Black, great book, great movie, highly recommend. And let's see, I don't think any of these other ones would work for this video, so I'm going to close up this video. Thank you very much for joining me for Talia Nerds Out. Hope that you have a very blessed day, and I will see you next time. God bless.